Okay, so today we are starting with Unit 4, which is networks, computer networking, and where we're going to understand network principles. So the aim of this unit is to enable learner to understand the importance of networks to computer system and the essential use in a variety of applications. So the learner will also gain knowledge about network technology and the delivery of a wide range of network service. So we'll have a couple of indicative contents from here. So we'll look into sharing hardware resource, sharing software resource, sharing common data, potential internet provision. Also look into concept like client computer and peer computers. Then we'll look into analyzing what is a LAN, a WAN, including VLAN and so on. And then we'll look into topology. So we'll look into linear bus topology, ring topology, and static topology and minion. So let's watch a video which will give us an explanation of networking. So let me share the audio.
If you've got more than enough money coming in each month, feel free to skip this ad. If not,
what is the difference between a LAN, WAN, and a subnet? So that is the topic of this video. Now the first thing we must do is define what a network is. Now simply put, a network at its most basic are just computers connected to each other to exchange information. These computers can be connected by using either a cable or a wireless connection. Now the most common way for computers to connect to each other is by using a switch. A switch is a central wiring point with multiple ports so that two or more computers can connect to each other to create a network. So since we have created a network, this is called a LAN or local area network. And a LAN is a private network. It's a type of network that you would find inside of a building, such as in a home, business, or an organization. So right now, the computers in this network can only talk and exchange data with each other. However, if these computers need to access another network, such as the internet, they would need to contact an internet service provider, and then that ISP would send them a device called a gateway. Now, a gateway is a modem-router combo. Then once the gateway is connected, the computers in this local area network can now access and be a part of a wide area network, or WAN. A wide area network is a large network of millions of computers that spans over a large geographical area, such as a country, continent, or even the entire globe, or in other words, the internet. The internet is an example of a wide area network. Now, a lot of times what may happen in a lot of businesses is that they may have different departments. For example, they may have a service department and a sales department. And a lot of times that business may want to separate the computer network data in the different departments from each other, so that the sales department doesn't see any network traffic from the service department and vice versa. So what a business will do is that they'll divide their one local area network into two smaller networks. These smaller networks are called subnetworks, and a shorter way to say subnetwork is subnet. A subnetwork or subnet is just a division of a bigger network. So this network here is still a local area network, but within that LAN we have two subnetworks or subnets. Now what divides or separates a network from another network is a router. A router is the doorway or gateway to a network. So this router here is what's separating these two subnets. Now this network is not just limited to creating just two subnets. It can create how many it wants. It just depends on the needs of the business. So if this business expanded and they wanted to create another department, they can further separate this network and create a third subnet by adding another router. So now this local area network has 3 subnetworks or subnets. So as I stated before, the reason why an organization or business would create subnets is to separate the network traffic. Now this could be for several different reasons, such as manageability, because if any problems happen on a network, it would be easier to pinpoint on smaller networks than one large network. And another reason is for security. Subnets can have their own separate security rules to either allow or deny access to certain data. And another reason for creating subnets is to improve the performance of a network by controlling broadcast traffic. When a computer wants to communicate with other computers on a network, it sends out a broadcast to every computer on the network. So every computer can hear the broadcast traffic from every other computer. But by breaking down a network into smaller subnets, which is known as subnetting, the broadcasts are only heard by other computers on the same subnet, therefore limiting the amount of broadcast traffic. So as a review, the Internet with all of its computers, servers, and routers is an example of a wide area network. But within that wide area network, we have local area networks. These are private networks that are in organizations, businesses, and homes. And within those LANs, we have subnets, which are divisions of larger networks. So I want to thank you for watching this quick video on LANs, WANs, and subnets. Please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.
Okay, so I hope this video was useful for the purpose of explaining how a network is organized. Now we'll go more in detail and we'll understand, we'll explain how data communication happens. So we all know that each device, each computer or telephone will have a IP address. So what do we mean by IP address? An IP address is a unique value which is assigned to a device in order for us to be able to identify that device. So let's see as our IP address as the name of our electronic device. So the way we are called Mark, Matthew, whoever, our device will now have his own IP address, which allows him to connect, to communicate with another computer. So whenever a message, an email, or something is sent from an IP address to another one, this is sent through a MAC address. So what does the MAC address do? The MAC address will now take the data and transfer it from one location to another location. This is what it simply does. And it is basically like a type of encryption. So the message is now encrypted and it transferred from one location to another one. So the video explained how pretty much this is done. So and now I've mentioned the IP protocol. So which is simply the transmission from one MAC address, from a sender MAC address to our receiver IP address. So as you can see here, simplified communication model can now make it easier, but there are many tasks which has to be performed when it comes to a communication system. That's why we have something called the OC model. So the OC model represents all the processes, all the layers, which has to be covered from all the protocols in order for them to transmit a message. So our video showed, actually explained how data can be processed in a small organization. Say, for instance, we're looking into a business. This data can be shared locally through a LAN, which is a local area network. As we can see, is on a very small scale of coverage, which can be within a university campus or a office building. And what we can see is owned and operated by the organization, which they own in these endpoints. So all the communication occurs within this smaller range of area, while with a wide area network, we can now cover a larger, a bigger geographical area, such as like a nation, or maybe a continent, as the guy explained in the video. While when it comes to communicate globally, that's when we now have to refer to our ISP, Internet Service Provider, which will now give us access to a wider range of information. Here we can see some definition, we can see some history behind Internet, where in 1969, the US Department of Defense, which was acting through its Advanced Research Project Agency, they now created a 4-node network. So our first ever network was created in 1969, and it was called ERPANET, which is a ARPANET, and which follows the NCP protocol, which is Network Control Protocol. And now we have evolved to TCP and IP, which is the upgrade of this ARPANET. And as I said, with the IP protocol, Internet Protocol, we can now assign IP address as unique values, and we can now share details. So the video also explains some key components, such as routers, devices, switches, and this is how they have to be assembled, where we will now have our internet provider, which will now reach to the switch, not to our router, and this will now redistributed to all our PCs through our switch. As I was saying, the OC model, or also called IP model, is a representation of the layers that has to be covered when it comes to sharing data. So at the bottom, we have the physical layer, and we have data link, network layer, transport layer, session, presentation, and application layer. So what do we mean? So networking protocol will now define the rule of communication between devices. These layers, will look into them appropriately tomorrow. We will identify them, and we will explain them in detail. So today, we're just going to have an introduction.
Okay.
So what do we mean by client computer and a peer computer? With a client and server software, we now usually run on a separate computer, while when it comes to looking into a small business, this will now typically run a client. You will now run as a client and also function as the server, while a peer-to-peer network advantage, we will now look into easy to be set up. It is less complex, and it has lower cost, while the disadvantages will now be everything will be centralized. So someone will completely have access to all the data, and he now give permission with other users. What is a topology? So topology is simply explains us how we're going to recreate our network. So there are various types of topology depending on the purpose of your network. So when it comes to maybe a university campus, we will have one type of topology compared to a hospital network system. So depending on the type of connection and purpose, they will have their own topology. So we have looked into type of networks with local area network, wide area network. And there are other types such as metropolitan, which means you cover a metropolitan area. So for instance, you're looking into a city or maybe a London city or a city like New York, like a quite big city. So this network, this connectivity will just cover this city. So here is pretty much a repetition of what we already covered. So this was everything for today's session. Do you have any question for me?
No, it's all good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.